Today we'll be looking at our first legacy reading of the semester. And the legacy readings basically are contemporary theorists, so people living and writing today, and carrying on the legacy of earlier theorists. So we'll see today with Arnold and Fazio the neo-Marxist tradition, and basically people today using the ideas of Marx and Engels and applying them to our lives. So before we get there, just to quickly recap what we did for the last few class periods, getting into classical theory for the first time this semester and focusing on Marx and Engels. And so Marx and Engels, we saw four different themes. So we saw a theory of exploitation when we looked at commodity fetishism. We saw a theory of social control when we looked at German ideology. We saw social change when we looked at Communist Manifesto, and we saw the technology human experience theory with the machinery and technology piece. So, although they focus on the mode of production and capitalism, throughout all of their theories, Marx and Engels do vary in terms of the types of theories they produced. So here we see Arnold and Fazio kind of carry on that tradition by looking at the role of capitalism today, and specifically, they're updating the machinery and technology piece. So basically, the same theory we saw with Marx and Engels being updated to our lives today, and this update is primarily twofold. Looking at newer technology, kind of higher levels of technology today compared to the past. And also we see a different class being focused on. So Marx and Engels focused on, the working class individuals, in the factories, in the mills, when these, higher level machinery items start to change the work environment, again, under that capitalist system. And so here we see, the same focus on technology and its use within capitalism, but it's now being applied to a middle class, a kind of professional upper class group of individuals. So that's kind of the two main differences here. It's a shift to different forms of technology, specifically looking at computers, different software technology, and then we look at a different class of individuals, a kind of more professional class, looking at doctors and nurses specifically for the most part in your reading today. So we'll break down the reading in terms of the general type first. And so again, what we're looking at is an update of one of those four theories we read from Marx and Engels. And looking at, it's a theory of technology and human experience. What should come to mind is that machinery and technology piece. So again, kind of the same type of theory, but just being updated to our lives today. And so what we're looking at is how professional work has been kind of reorganized due to technological innovation. And again, all this kind of works within a capitalist system as well. And you need to take note of that because it really kind of drives the changes. And so we'll get into that a little bit further. So the what, they're trying to explain, how this professional work is being reorganized, re-experienced, just like the work from the working class individuals in the factories was discussed by Marx and Engels. So new technologies, and as I mentioned, such as software programs and computers, reorganize the experience for doctors and for nurses. And kind of one big change is a kind of minimization, a decrease of autonomy. So autonomy basically, the ability to do what you want to do and how you want to do it. The new technology starts to minimize that autonomy, the decision-making ability by a nurse or by a doctor. And so basically what's going on here to minimize that decision-making is the technologies making the decisions for the workers. So, the programs kind of spit out, formulas. The computer screen basically tells you what to do or how to do it and when to do it. And so rather than a nurse kind of making that decision on her own, or rather than a doctor making that decision on her own, basically the decision's made for them. And so that's kind of one big change. In the past, before the computers are used, before the software was invented, the nurse would have to, make the decision in terms of how to do, something or how not to do something, when to do it, when not to do it. And the same thing goes for the doctor. But you bring in the technology, you start to lose a lot of that freedom, a lot of that autonomy. And it's like the same thing happened to the worker, when the machinery was built in factories and the capitalist system, a lot of their autonomy was taken away as well. So another aspect of this, workers still have to complete, required training. And so you have to get your advanced degrees, you have to get your special credentials. And when you have those advanced degrees, when you obtain those credentials, you also have the knowledge that goes with the training. So you do have that kind of know-how that you used in the past to do your job. But today, because the technology is doing a lot of that thinking for you, what you see as a result is these individuals are kind of overtrained, thus overqualified for the work that they're doing. They know how to do it, but they're not being asked to because, again, this machinery, the technology is doing it for them. So kind of two main changes, with the new technology, you have the decision-making ability being taken away from the workers and the workers now becoming overqualified. They have all this education, they never really put it to use because the technology is doing it for them. And so finally, you start to see how they highlight bureaucracy as well. So here's a little bit of Max Weber, another classical theorist that we'll be talking about, who really focused on bureaucracy and kind of a new way to organize the work experience. And kind of within this capitalist bureaucratic system, time is money, and you want to get as many people kind of in and out the door so you can make money, so you can make profit. And that holds true, with the medical field as well. And so here you start to see that, using technology to speed things up, but again, kind of within that capitalist system, you start to get people in and out the door as quickly as possible. So you're making your money, but a consequence of that is you start to make the environment very impersonal. You no longer get to know your patients. You no longer get to know the consumers. And so basically, you interact with them as quickly as possible, shortly as possible, and you move on to the next one, and then the next one, then the next one. And because you're not spending quality time getting to know somebody, you don't get to know them. Rather, you're spending kind of these short periods of time, getting it done quickly as possible and getting them out the door. And when that occurs, again, within that capitalist system where time is money, you make things very impersonal and it depersonalizes the work experience as a whole. So, compared to the past where you had to figure it out on your own, you really had to talk to patients, you really had to get to know people. But when you had the technology spitting it out for you right away, you don't have that time to get to know somebody, and you don't have the motivation to get to know people because, again, you don't really rely on them too much. You just rely on the technology. So that's where you start to see go on with Arnold and DeFazio, looking at new technology today and how that reorganizes human experience. But again, focusing on the capitalist system as kind of the driving force. Because just like Marx and Engels said, with the machinery technology, capitalism fetters human creativity, human experience in favor of control and profit. So yes, maybe it's not as fun anymore for a doctor because she doesn't get to know her patients. It's not any fun, as much compared to the past for a nurse because, again, he's just reading out these receipts in terms of what to do. But again, having fun, enjoying your job is secondary when it comes to the capitalist system. What is primary is controlling the environment so you can make it as efficient as possible and making profits as a result. And so now let me touch on briefly the first in-class assignment. So, the guidelines for this are posted in the content section on our D2L site. So basically, I'm asking you to do, three different things. For the first thing, basically, talk about which of those four theories that we went over with Marx and Engels, which of those four is being updated. So, you can see commonalities perhaps with various theories, but there's one specific one that they are updating. So, which theory is being updated? And then within the theory for today, the Arnowitz and the Fazio theory, what's happening to individual autonomy? And so you can say autonomy is remaining the same, nothing's changed. Autonomy is increasing, meaning you get more freedom on the job, or autonomy is decreasing, you're getting less freedom on the job. So, what's going on, then explain why it's going on that way. And likewise, for number three, what's going on with personal qualifications of workers? Are workers underqualified today? Uh, are they overqualified? Or qualifications basically, remain the same? And again, explain this change. So, all those things I ask you to do worth 4 points, and it's worth 20 points total. So again, kind of keep in mind this is kind of based upon participation. So you will, even though you don't get it correct, you still get those 20 points. But this is how I kind of divide it up in terms of if we are kind of a normal class face to face, it wouldn't be this participation. It would be more kind of breaking it up like this. So that's how I kind of think about the assignments, and that's how you should approach it. And as always, if you have any questions, please let me know.